Atlanta is a sexy, beautiful city. But there's a dark side. We work hundreds of murders.
Homicide is like mental chess, and I'm just waiting for that mistake.
How many calls did you make to check on your wife?
When you tear away all the fibers and the fingerprints, at the end of the day, all you have is a story.
Holy cow, Atlanta Homicide, you gotta love it. A subject, as the viewers know, I am deeply invested in as a former homicide prosecutor myself. I have the pleasure of being on with Vincent Velazquez, who is one of the stars, a former 30-year, I believe, or about, retired officer from Atlanta, worked 15 years at least as a homicide detective with his buddy there that you saw on the promo, David Quinn. Vince, you're living the dream, brother. I love homicide. I love talking about homicide. I'm really happy and envious for you. Tell us, man, how did you get involved in all this?
You know, this thing kind of found us. David and I, early in our career, started using this local media to help us solve cases. People would shy away from that. And David and I was like, let's get in front of the camera. Let's put this case out there. So we got a little comfortable with that. And then from that, First 48 came to town, and we did a lot of stuff with First 48. And so we learned, you know, how to use the media to help us solve cases, made some friends in that business. Our good friends who were producers had a great idea of trying to put a show together. So Sizzle Reel was born, and then from that, we shopped it around, and TV One was gracious enough to offer us the platform that we were looking for. And hence, ATL Homicide was born from that.
Yeah, Vince, but that's amazing. I know what you're saying. I did all the press conferences for 6 years as the county prosecutor, and homicides was pretty much when, you know, they'd be converging on you, if you will, either when there was a homicide or after you tried the case and you solved it. But as I understand this show, it's a unique thing. You're actually going back to all the homicides that you and David had actually worked on, and I guess running through, and I agree, I tell people all the time, the behind-the-scenes story is always more relevant and, to me, entertaining, if you will, than the actual stuff the public sees. So is that what you're doing, going back to all your old cases and kind of going through what was really happening behind the scenes?
Precisely, that's what we're doing. So David and I started in homicide in 2000. So for 15 years, we worked as partners, and you can imagine the number of cases in 15 years that we worked. So we'll go back, and each episode is a case, and we're going to take you from when we get the call to driving to the scene, and what you'll see is recreation flashbacks. So it'll be David and I in real life talking about setting up this case or this scene, and then it'll flash to the actors that play us and all the other people in that case, and back to us to set it up a little bit more. And we take you through all of the details and the twists and turns, and, you know, the viewers will think they may be figuring it out. And, you know, and as you know, prosecuting homicide cases have 15 turns before you get to where you have to go. And you'll see that throughout the series.
Yeah, hey, Vince, I love what you just said there, because I am often a critic in a lot of the media cases that I analyze around the country, and I'm curious if this is your experience about these twists and turns where you've seen this. I've been on the scenes myself and seen them. Somebody goes there and they automatically say suicide or medical event or accident, and the crime scene tape comes down, people start smoking the cigarettes, and homicides don't get solved, or they're mischaracterized. Did you experience a lot of that in your career?
Yeah, we've had cases where, and you may see that in this series or next season, without giving too much away, but we've had cases where, you know, what's apparent is really not apparent, where we start to go down the road. And as a prosecutor, you know this better than anybody, you know, we have to follow the facts and dig deeper. It's not just scratching the surface. You know, we don't scratch, we dig as deep as we can go. And we've had cases where it looked like a suicide and ended up being a murder. Or, you know, we had a case, I can recall a case I had once where I had a young man that was dead in a park with a gunshot wound to his leg. And it just didn't add up. It didn't appear to be a robbery, but in all sense, we had to go that route. As we kept digging, we found out this young man actually shot himself, severed his femoral artery, and bled to death. And the reasons for him doing that were not to commit suicide, it was for another reason. But in all aspects, it looked like a homicide. And if we would have stayed with that, that would have been an unsolved homicide. Nobody would have ever had any closure on, family included. So cases like this, and you'll see in the series, the viewers will look and say, okay, I think I know who did this. And the next thing you know, we're going to introduce another suspect to you.
Yeah, I can't count the amount of cases I myself have investigated, Vince, that appeared to be one thing, and if you keep everybody from jumping to conclusions, take all the data in, of course you have an investigative part of your mind that is moving in a direction, but what appeared to be something like the husband did it because there's a contentious divorce, or I've had a couple of those that have happened where in fact the original suspect was not the person who perpetrated the homicide, and that usually takes great guys like you who have the acuity to say, all right, we can look at that, but let's also not discount all the other evidence over here and put a square peg and a round hole. And it sounds like that's exactly what this show is going to be showing, that, you know, you got to take your time, you got to let it marinate, you got to use what I always say the most important detective and prosecutor tool you have, your common sense when you're looking at these cases.
That's absolutely right. And common sense is in information are the two most valuable commodities I think anybody, detective, doctor, anybody could have to be successful. This particular series, what you're going to see, especially in episode 1, is just that. You're going to see, in this case, in true life, was we could have arrested the wrong person and convicted him. Mm-hmm. There was enough evidence to convict the person who we initially thought killed this victim. He would have been spending the rest of his life in prison. But as we kept digging and digging and digging, we found that he was not the one responsible. But there was so much evidence, so much circumstantial evidence. And as you know, that's powerful in court. We could have convicted him. But as we kept on, and you'll see this in episode 1, we finally found the real killer. And the evidence against the real killer was overwhelming. But that just goes to show you that, you know, mistakes are made, suicides are glossed over, you know, where it may be a murder, or vice versa, where it's, you know, you think it's a murder, but it really is a suicide. So in any case, and you'll see the 12 episodes in this series, each of these cases, you're going to see the difficulties that not just David and I have, and any homicide detective has every day, in bringing families closure. And it's not easy. It's not easy. This is not a job for anybody, you know, in law enforcement. It's somebody that, you know, you have to have some dedication, some determination. And God bless, I'm retired. God bless the rest of those guys and gals out there today that are still doing it, because it's not easy work.
You know, Vince, I going back to my experience, I was an assistant prosecutor at criminal defense, and I became the head county prosecutor. And during the time I did criminal defense work, by the time I became the county prosecutor, technology changed amazingly. I was trying murder cases without DNA, without all the sophisticated science. But what shocked me, Vince, when I came back with all of that great technology, was that it seemed to me that it actually sometimes did not actually assist the case, because the detectives started relying so much on that. They seem to have lost their common sense in evaluating cases. Your career spanned over probably the same amount of time I did. What are your thoughts on that?
You hit the nail on the head. And that's something David Quinn, my partner, and I talk about all the time. Cell phone technology especially. And what we found is detectives are relying so much on forensic and computer and cyber information that they have forgotten, you know, and my partner puts it eloquently, we have to go talk to the humans, to quote David Quinn. And that's old school detective work, old school prosecution work to present it to a jury. So we can't rely on technology all the time. DNA, cell phone records are so important now in investigating crime that typically if they are non-existent, detectives get stalled. And that's where old fashioned, you know, level to the pavement comes in. You got to get out there, you got to knock on doors. And if you got to hit that door 3 or 4 times, if they don't tell you, you know, either don't want to talk to you or they don't give you all the information, you don't give up. Forget the phones, forget the DNA. If it's there, that's great. If it's not, you got to get out there and do your job. When I started, I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a cell phone. Right. I had a typewriter. You know, we actually used carbon paper we would type a warrant up to have a copy of it. It was archaic, right? But it's how you learn. It's how some of the young guys before I retired, David and I are just, shooting it up in the squadron, and we're talking about the old days. And obviously they know, but to work a homicide, we have to actually pull a map book out and go A4. I got to find this address instead of Googling it and doing GPS, and have a map book in your car. I used to carry a mini cassette recorder. It was literally this big and that thick, with the real cassette that you would put it in with batteries in it. And that's how we would record our conversations or interviews with people on the street. So imagine trying to hide a tape recorder this big in a suit jacket. You look like you're carrying a bazooka under your jacket, Right. That's the old school way of doing things. And guys, these young guys that are out there today doing this, God bless them, because that technology is important. We just use their skills. It's just too much for me to learn that late in the stage of the game for me and David. So we would use our young guys that were like cell phone gurus or DNA experts to help us evaluate this, and then go back to the old school way of doing things.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you completely. I love having this conversation with you. It's going to be an amazing show because you do have that ability to transfer from the old school, common sense way of doing things. Just like I used to say to my assistant prosecutors when we were trying cases, or my detectives, just because you don't have cell data or DNA, there was a time we used to win cases without those things. And another thing is, and I think you experienced this too, is that they rely so heavily on it that they may miss something else that allows a defense attorney to say, well, you just stopped your investigation there. You didn't look at all these other things. Have you experienced that too?
Absolutely. Like the old school way of just going back to the crime scene at the time that it occurred on another day. So you can get a feel of, what the natives are doing. Like if it's a neighborhood that has a high population of people taking public transportation, I would go back out there and we would sit there and watch, because there may be somebody that gets off the bus at the same time every day. That could be a witness. Yep. Those things seem to have fallen to the wayside a little bit, I think, in modern times because of technology. And we are, a technological age. Everything is a smartphone. Even me, if I lost my phone today, I'd panic because I'm so tied to this phone. And also, I think your memory, is a little bit diminished because we don't have to remember anything anymore, because we can just pick this thing up right here and type it in and we got what we need. So we are definitely connoisseurs of the old school, but we embrace the new school as well.
Well, I got to tell you something, Vince. I've been doing this for 30 years. Homicide is what I've done. I love it. And the last thing I want to do is see another crime show. But you have convinced me, based upon the way your experience level, I actually think you're doing a public service, because this is an epidemic of evaluated cases. This is Vince Velazquez with his former partner David Quinn, who are going to be doing Atlanta Homicide. It's a new series that's coming out based on real life cases and that they actually solved themselves. So these guys are the real deal. They're not just talking about what somebody did. They actually did it. They're going to break it down for us. And Vince, it premieres on July 9th, 2018 at 10 o'clock on TV1. I am definitely watching it. I'm pushing it out on my social media. I wish you the best of luck, my friend. And unfortunately, we have to go to our top crime stories, but we'll catch up again soon. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what a fascinating concept, and it's going to be a great show. I can tell right off the get-go, this guy's the real deal. This is going to be a great show, a needed show, and an entertaining show. I can tell that there's some characters, too. Most homicide detectives are. So we're going to go to the top crime stories for the day, and on the other end of that, we're going to have more Law and Crime. I'll be with you here at 3 o'clock. Looking forward to see you in the chat room on the Law and Crime Network, a Dan Abrams production.